this training, we're going to go through how to do a simple export out of your existing CRM or database that might not have a lot of information that pulls out. Either way, if you've got more advanced or more information you're pulling out, say from a Zillow Excel spreadsheet or maybe Top Producer, I know some of these have a lot of columns in it. I would suggest you watch this video and then go watch the other one. And then we're also going to do another video on if you're bringing in notes, how to handle the note export as well and the note import into the new system, because in many of our systems we can't just do it in one step. We got to take 2 steps when we're bringing in notes. So I'm going to go over to my LionDesk account because that's where some of my leads were and are in, and many of us in here are using LionDesk. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and show you in there. But it's going to be very similar in the system you're in, I would think. You just have to know where you need to go with your export. The goal here, however, is not to pass up on this video. And the reason is that I'm going to talk a lot about how and what you're going to export to get started, especially if you're in the jump start. Okay, so let's go over to my existing LionDesk account. Let's take a look. So I actually have a bunch of fake content in here so I can teach you how to do this, just for interest of not showing everybody's content on this particular thing. So let's go ahead and talk about what you're going to export. For those of you who are in LionDesk, or maybe in other systems might be very similar to this, when there are 2 different ways to export out of LionDesk. And the first way is to do it from the inside of your contact list. Another way is to export the entire database from another step that I'm going to show you in another video. But so if you want to pull the entire list out at one time, which frankly I don't recommend you do. I really don't want to see you do that, because we want to see you bring in just a small set of leads to get started in the jump start. And the other thing is when you do the entire list, there's no way for you to sort through them and pick out what you want to bring in and start with. So this is going to keep you from having your head explode, for one. And we're going to focus on similar type of leads. And so we're going to try to re-engage some old stale ones in here. And if we don't know who they are, it's going to be a little bit hard to do. Okay, so our first step then is decide what it is you're going to bring in. And so let's talk about that. And again, I don't care what system you're in, but we want to focus first on the people that are most apt to work with you fast. Okay, and so in my opinion, it's going to be old stale leads that you've had in the system for less than 2 years. Okay, because most likely there's a good chance they may still be in the research mode, right? And if they started a year or 2 ago, they might just be hot to trot right now. And at the very minimum, we'll get a feel on where they're at. Okay, and you're going to admit that maybe some of these have been sitting in here and you haven't touched them, and they do need to be, kind of re-engaged to find out where they're at. We're all in that boat, so don't feel bad. Okay, so what I want you to focus on, if you have mostly buyers or you're mostly a buyer's agent, we want you to go and find all the leads that are less than 2 years old that you have not closed. Okay, so if you're a seller, same thing. If you're mostly a seller's agent, go in here and find all of the hunt. Okay, so I don't want to say hunt all of them, because what we really want to do is focus on the last 2 years. Okay, now I just imported a fake list in here because it was easier for me to do. My date created is the same for all of them, just so you know. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, what you want to do is identify most recent. Okay, now we only want to bring in about 100 leads to get started for the jump start. So we want to try to whittle it down to that. So if you have way more leads than 100 over the last 2 years, then I want you to focus more on the newer leads that are in here, okay? Because there is a good chance that they might be hot right now. If you're doing Zillow and they're coming in and they haven't really had any contact, that would be a suggestion. So maybe you start 6 months back or something along those lines. I guess it depends on how many leads you've been getting. But just make a decision and try to keep it at the 100. Worst case, don't go more than 200 right now, and you're going to know why when you see your table pull in, and then you've got to clean your table up because it's a disaster. Okay, so we're trying to focus on not getting overwhelmed by trying to export your entire database, and then we will never get it cleaned up because we're overwhelmed looking at it. Okay, so let you just whittle on down. Okay. Now, if you have not kept track in here, then what you, like for instance, these statuses right here should show something. So I've got this kind of account that needs to be cleaned up. I know for one that all these Zillow buyers that I have not closed, you know, because these are fake leads, but this is my example. They haven't closed. But the easiest way to figure out who your old stale leads are is to go into your list and identify all the people that have already closed, because the chances are you've probably closed more leads than you have not. So you're going to start there. And then you're also going to go and identify all the people that you're actively working with, okay? So if you have not been good about this, and I don't blame you. I'm not slapping your hand on this because we're all in this boat. If you have not been good about keeping track of who your closed buyers are in here, then the best thing you can do is go to your title company and get a list from them of everything you've closed, okay? Then you can come in and go back and find your people, and you might find they're not even in here because you want to add them to. So I would say you could add them here if you want to, or you could wait till we do the export and then add them to the list once we get it cleaned up and before we bring it in, okay? But what we don't want to do right now is actually focus on the people that are closed at this very moment, because what I'm trying to do is get you some activity, all right? And so our activity is with the re-engagement campaigns that I have. And you're not going to send a re-engagement campaign to a seller, okay? So we just, or I mean, sorry, to somebody that you've already closed. I'm sorry. You're not going to send a re-engagement campaign to somebody that you've already closed. And it doesn't matter if they're buyers or sellers because we have campaigns for both, okay? All right, I hope all this makes sense as you're listening to me. I probably should be on the camera here as I'm talking to you, but I just want to be sure that you're not overwhelming yourself during this exporting and cleanup, okay? Because here's what we're going to do. We're going to export, we're going to have an Excel spreadsheet we're going to clean up, and then we're going to import, right? There's no use in trying to clean up once we pull it in, okay? And you're going to hear me say this in other trainings. It's like a garage sale, right? You're moving out, or an estate sale. You're moving, you sold your home, you want to clean it up, you have a garage sale, right? So we're going to dump out all the stuff you don't want to keep, and we're going to bring in clean stuff. So we have to have an estate sale and get rid of it, right? So what that means, are there tags that you have in here you don't want? Are there, you know, hotness levels that you don't like? Whatever, we're going to clean it up, okay? But we're not going to do it right here in this screen. We're going to do it at the Excel spreadsheet level because it's way faster, okay? All right, first things first, we have to identify who we're going to bring out. So in this case, we've made the decision we're going to bring in all the Zillow leads that have come in over the last, in my case, I'm going to go all the Zillow leads that come in over the last 6 months because I haven't had more than that. Okay, let's just say, all right? So the first thing you're going to want to do is go up to your filter contacts and decide who you're going to do, okay? So go up to select a source and let's just, whatever it is, because we know they're all buyers. Okay, you can't see this, but I'm going to click on Zillow. It's down here at the bottom of my list. See? Okay. We know because let's just say you've been buying leads and you know they're all buyers. We want to keep it kind of similar. Let's go ahead and click on Zillow and it should pop up here. Ugh, hold on, this thing's in the way. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, you see how it's clicked here? Now I know it's here. Okay. So Zillow should pop into the list. Oh, I don't know if it hit it. Oh, yeah, it did. There it is. Okay. Now, stick with one kind of type. Now, the two most important things you could do is just go find all your old stale buyers and forget the source, okay? And then the status is going to be important. So if you know that they're all less than 2 years old, then you can not worry about the status right now, other than the fact that you've gone in and said, well, you've picked out the people that were closed and you've added the closed tag to or the closed status to them. So make sure that you do this before you start this process. So we're only pulling out the closed, the status that are either new or prospecting, okay? In my case, none of these people have any statuses. So I also want to pull those people, okay? But by now you should have put in here the status for all your closed people and all the active people you're currently working with. Does that make sense? Make sure that you've gone in here and done this before you do the export, and then those people won't be pulled out, okay? Now, I know all these people are buyers because they're Zillow, so I don't have to put buyer here, okay? If you're not going to put a source and you're going to focus only on buyers, then put buyers here, right? This is a different account, so I actually don't have all my tags in here, or all my types in here like I normally would, but so put buyers here if you've got a buyer contact type, but you got to add the type to it right? Okay. I think the easiest thing to do is to start with the source because you know they're either buyers or sellers in most cases. Okay. All right, next thing we're going to do is identify that when these things were created, and because I just added all these for fake purposes, you can go back 2 years. I'm not going to because I do have a few Zillow leads in here that go back that far, but right now I'm only focusing on these fake ones. So I'm going to go here and click on contact create date, and I'm going to go all the leads from, let's say I've gone back 2 years, but I'm really only going to go back a month, okay? So there we are, and then I'm going to take this out because I want everything, whoops, I'm sorry, yeah, I want everything that was since that date, okay? All right, so, and make sure you take this out or you get nothing showing up, all right? So if I then apply the filters, that list ought to pull all my Zillow leads that I have that had just brought in, right? And I have 129. Well, I can't see them all here. So how do I do that? I'm going to go here on this and go all the way down. I got 129, so I'm going to go to 150. And so they'll all show up here. Now, this is really important because the only thing that's going to export out of here are going to be the people that are on the screen. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. All right, we're still cleaning up though, because I could conceivably right now add a bunch of tags to these people or add in the statuses at this point, which might save me time. And you can do that. In most of our CRMs, we can do things in bulk. So remember, I've got these all here so can see them all. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to change everything over to change the statuses on all of these. Now, because I can't remember whether or not I talked to these folks or not, I'm just going to add them all to a prospecting status. Let's talk a little bit about different statuses that you might see in different systems. This is me, how I've always done it. New means new into the system, means I've never spoken to them. Doesn't mean that I didn't send them something, but they never communicated back, okay? And usually everything, all the systems actually have a default when the leads come in that they come in new, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I am editing the status. Well, I could say status new, right? Or I could say status prospecting. And status prospecting to me is someone I've spoken to, but I haven't actually started like working with them for whatever reason. They haven't agreed to work with me or we're just communicating, okay? When we get to a point where we're actually out showing homes or taking listings or getting close to doing that, we want to shut all the campaigns off. And when we do, I would put them into an active mode. So you don't even want them getting Sphere, maybe a holiday, but not Sphere because the Sphere still is going to kind of say, if you need help, So I'm going to only people I'm actively listing, showing homes to, or getting ready to very quickly will be active. All right. Future, frankly, I never use that, but if you have any futures in here, they're probably needing to be re-engaged, so just heads up. In this system, they have closed/inactive as the same thing, and I never did understand that, but for me, closed is closed, inactive is inactive, so I always used this for closed. So this is where you're going to make sure that you've marked people as closed, and in this export, we are not going to be pulling closed clients, okay? And we're not pulling closed and we're not pulling active from my original discussion, okay? Non-client, excuse me, to me is somebody that maybe it's an agent, maybe it's somebody who said they have another agent. It could be an agent, it could be a lender, it could be a vendor or something like that, or it could be somebody who said they already had another agent, which is fine. That doesn't mean you still can't help them later, but so we do want to bring them in, okay? If you think that there's a chance you could get future business out of them one way or the other. So I usually would put non-client, and I never used soon, and one of the reasons I didn't is because it doesn't show up in the contact area when you go in there. So soon, actually, just FYI, using anything time-based like this is not a good idea ever when you're doing tags or anything, because future today may not be future 6 months from now, right? And soon today may not be soon 6 months from now. And what does that mean to you? So what I would rather see you do is like a hot, warm, cold level, and don't do 1 to 3 months or 6 to 9 months. That is time-based and it goes obsolete, Today it's 1 to 6 months, but 6 months or 7 months from now, you might still have that tag on there and it will mean nothing to you. So I'm not a fan. Don't use anything time-based, and any tags in anything you're doing. Okay, you can use the hot, warm, cold thing, and we'll talk about that when we get to settings. Okay. All right, cool. Now what I want to do right now is what I'm doing is editing the status. I'm going to add prospect into all these people because honestly, I don't remember if I talked to them all. So if I do it here, it'll pull out. You see how I did that? The other thing this doesn't have was the, when I did an import just now, the new system at V2 did not allow me to bring in the contact type, nor did it allow me to bring in the status for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and change the contact type. So the contact type is either buyer, seller, sphere, and that kind of stuff, right? And actually, I don't even have them in here now that I think about it because I'm in a different account that I didn't put those in. So I'm going to leave this for right now. I'll do it at the table when I get out there, okay? So if you have any hotness levels you want to track, I would bring those in for sure. All right, so let's have a chat. I'm kind of ready, I think, on the things that I may want to bring in for the kind of lead that we're going to bring in, okay? So we got that kind of handled. Now we've got to decide what information are we going to export. So let's talk about how that works in here. Specifically in LionDesk, what we export is what we see on the screen when we are in this mode of exporting. So we have to create the columns that we want to bring out because what we're seeing is what we're going to get. Now, so how we do that, at least in here, is I'm going to uncheck that. You're going to go to here and you're going to choose the things you want to export. It's as simple as that. Everything over here is what we see on the screen. And maybe this is the first time you've ever seen this if you're a LionDesk user. But this is how you can adjust the columns that you're seeing on the screen. I always used to take out owner because I know I'm the owner of these and they're just taking up space. You see all that? I also have assigned agents. So sometimes I assign my leads to agents in my team. So I added the assigned column in. I'm very interested in the created date because that'll tell me how old the leads are at. So I'm going to bring those in. It's up to you if you care about bringing in last comment and next task. It's really a matter of your business and how you use those. I'm going to take them out because I don't care about those. I do want the source for sure, and I do want the status, and I do want the tags. Obviously, I want the contact information as well, and the hotness levels. In my real estate account, I do have a ton of hotness levels that I track, you know, where we're at with those. So if you have them, bring them in. I think it's a good idea. Now, if there's addresses, let's say you're a listing agent and it's important for you to pull the addresses in, you've got to put the column in here for the address and the entire address and all of the address information that you have, right? So you got to bring in that, you got to bring in this, you got to bring in that so that it comes in, okay? If you're tracking it here, okay? In my case, my system also was hooked up to an IDX search website company, so it is pulling in information about the different IDX searches. So if you've got that and you're interested at all in any of that information, you might want to click on that and bring it in, okay? So just for fun right now, let's go ahead and update this table. The other thing I like to bring in is the contact type. Let me add that in. I'm going to insert, let's see, I'm going to go to columns and I'm going to add the contact type in so I know if it's a buyer or seller, and it's way down here at the bottom. Okay, you can also drag this around. Not that it matters at the exporting because we're going to export and import. It doesn't really matter, but all right, so you can see now, and I've updated the table, all of the information that's going to pull in. Let me shut this down because it's taking up a lot of space. So, right? All of this stuff is going to pull in of what I'm seeing, right? So this is the important part. You've got to be sure you know what you want to bring in, you know your business. You make sure you've got stuff in those fields that they're going to come, you know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave some of these columns in so you can see what happens when we do the export. But basically all of this information, like there's really nothing in any of this. I didn't change the type yet because I don't have the type added to this particular account of mine, but I'm going to add it at the table. So all of this stuff is going to come in, right? And it'll export. So now that I see it, the most we can export at any given time is the most that's in these columns, and that's 200, right? So I only have 125. So if you have anything more than 200, you're going to have to do this as many times 200 that you have. So let's say you have 700 leads in here. You're going to have to do this 4 times because 3 times 200 is 600 leads. And then one more is you'll have to do it one more time. However, I don't want to see you export that many right now, you guys, okay? At the very minimum, you can export it, but we're not going to import that many. We're going to import 100 to 200 at the most, and maybe you don't even have that many, so you're good, right? So because this is Jumpstart, and we're going to use these leads to practice and to get instant response. And if you start getting a bunch of response on 700 leads, you will not sleep tonight. Okay, it's going to be exciting, but we don't want that. We want you to just take a breather and learn off of a smaller size amount of leads. Okay, cool, got it. I'm going to harp on that a lot. Believe me, I've trained agents on this, and we've done it over and over again. And when you turn on, this happened. This is how I learned. We turned on a campaign for 1,000 leads once, and the guy stayed up all night because he got 190 responses within 24 hours, and he was freaking out. And I don't want that happening to you. It's great, but it's not, okay? Because you don't need to be freaked out. We're already stressing having to move, right? Okay. All right, now you got my story down. Now we've got this where we want it, right? And I'm going to go ahead up here. It says export visible contacts, right? So I'm just going to click on that. And you can't see it, but it did start. Well, now I dragged it down here, so you can see it's starting to load. So when it pulls up, let's see what we got. I'm going to click on it. After, it depends on how many you have, right? So we got to make sure we got them all covered. I'm going to go ahead and drag this up here a little bit so you can see what we're doing. So we got them all in, right? And in this case, the columns were pretty cleaned up because I cleaned them up before. I basically cleaned them up here and I imported them over there, and then I'm bringing them back out so you can see what to do. But all of the columns that I wanted out are here, okay? And if you, again, need to just know what you need to bring out, right? Now, maybe I don't really need these now. I could delete these out of here at this point, okay? Now, it's at this, oh, remember I was saying I was going to add in here, and this, I'm going to go through this in the cleanup video, but this is how you do it. Just type in buyer, and then I grab this little corner. Of course, I'm on a Windows. I really don't know Mac users, so we'll see. But that's how I do it. I know enough in Excel to get by this part of the process. Okay, so if you guys are Excel pros and you know better ways to do it, go for it. I'm going to delete these 4 columns because at this point I don't care. There's no information in here. So I'm just going to highlight this top area and right click and then hit delete. Okay, and then they're gone. All right. The date created is the date today because I was doing the videos today, but these will probably all be different for you. And then when we import it, it'll be important to have this information because you kind of want to know how old these leads are. All right. All right. Next for you is to go and watch the video on how to clean up your data, to clean up this spreadsheet. Because now that you've done this, there's still some cleanup to do, and you're going to do it at this screen. Okay. So go watch that next. It's next in the Jumpstart. And if you're not going through Jumpstart right now, go find it and go through it. Okay, it's really important. All right, so that's it for now. We're getting to the exciting part. We're going to start importing some leads and starting to engage. See you in the next one.